Hello and welcome into BTN's Take 10 podcast. This is Alex Roux of BTN.com, and you are listening to episode 2 of the 2018 BTN Bus Tour edition of the Take 10 podcast. I did this last year where I went around to all the Big Ten schools, interviewed a player at each stop, and I did it again in 2018. We already have one episode out from parts of the eastern leg of the 2018 tour, where we talked to players at Indiana, Maryland, Rutgers, and Penn State. And this will be, like I said, episode 2, and on this episode we wrap up the eastern leg of the BTN Bus Tour and get a little bit into the west. So we feature players on this episode from Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So we'll get right into it in just a second. I'll run down the players that we got for you coming up. First, talk to Noah Furbush, a linebacker in Michigan, who is an aspiring astronaut and a licensed pilot. So a ton of interesting stuff going on with him. And we got into his life off the field as well as some Wolverines talk as well. Moved on to Michigan State, where I talked to senior defensive back Khari Willis. Khari gave the Big Ten Kickoff Luncheon speech and did a great job back in July. So I talked to him about that, talked to him kind of the impetus for that speech and the passion behind it, as well as some Spartan football. After that, we headed west on the western leg of the BTN Bus Tour, where I talked to Levi Sagapolu, the defensive end at Wisconsin, who has come to be known not only for his run stuffing playing the D-line at Wisconsin, but for his backflipping expertise. He's a viral sensation on social media because he can pull off a backflip at 300 plus pounds. So great time talking to Levi, and then we'll wrap this episode up with a discussion. Minnesota Golden Gopher Bailey Schoenfelder. Bailey recently was brought on scholarship at Minnesota and pretty much the coolest way possible, and we talk a lot about that as he's a aspiring soldier in the military, and he was surprised by head coach PJ Fleck with another viral moment. Navy SEALs parachuted into Minnesota's TCF Bank Stadium and presented him with his scholarship. So tons of interesting stuff to talk about. We get to all of it on this episode of the Take 10 podcast, and we'll get right to it in just a second. Before we do that, just want to remind everyone to go ahead and like, rate, and subscribe to the Take 10 podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, and YouTube. All right, so let's get to the first interview. We'll start in Ann Arbor, Michigan, with senior Michigan linebacker Noah Furbush. That interview with Noah starts right now. I'm very pleased to be joined in Ann Arbor, Michigan, in the glistening, Schembechler Hall here. Very nice, by senior Wolverine linebacker Noah Furbush. Noah, thanks for joining me, man. How you doing?
Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Again, it's great to be here. I always love coming to Michigan because your facilities are top-notch and you guys are always nice and accommodating. So when I asked the reps from each school to give me interesting guests for this podcast, you're probably the blueprint for what I want because, honestly, above and beyond, because not only are you comfortable talking with the media from what I've seen, you have a very interesting life outside of football. So I'll let you kind of introduce it. If you could just go ahead and tell the listeners about your academic and professional pursuits outside of football.
Yeah, I'll try not to disappoint. So I'm a fifth-year senior. I recently graduated last spring, aerospace engineering, and now I'm doing a space engineering master's program. And I'll graduate again this coming spring. I'm an outside linebacker on the football team, and I also have my private pilot's license, which I got about 2 years ago. So I have around 75 flight hours. And after I graduate this spring, I'm looking forward to pursuing an aviation career in the United States Marine Corps.
That's amazing, and we'll get into some aviation questions. I have some pilot-related questions for you, especially what's been going on in the news lately for you in a little bit. But yeah, you just completed this program in aerospace engineering, and I read up that you spent the past summer with Ford out in Dearborn doing some work with them. So what went into that experience and that internship?
Yeah, that was an incredible experience. Really thankful to all the people at Ford that made that happen for me and that I was able to work with. Really positive experience. I'm not sure how much I'm technically allowed to say about that experience. I did sign, like an NDA and stuff, but It was a really awesome experience. What I will say is I worked on sustainability of different modes of transportation, and we have a publication forthcoming on that. So some really exciting stuff. Hopefully it'll be out there for the media and everybody, within the coming months, and we'll see how that all pans out. But really awesome experience working with Ford.
Yeah, exciting stuff. You grew up actually small town in Ohio, Buckeye country. How did you become interested in a field like aviation and aerospace engineering and all this high-tech stuff growing up in the Midwest?
Yeah, for sure. I think it started out, in second or third grade. I would sit there in class and draw pictures of airplanes and, just doodle like any other kid. I watched a lot of Star Wars. I'm a big fan of Star Wars.
Me too. Love Star Wars.
I want to be Han Solo, stuff like that.
Get your own Millennium Falcon fired up.
Aerospace sounded like, the best deal, and I decided to come to Michigan because of that. There's no other school out there that has that combination of top-tier engineering school, aerospace engineering, with top-tier football program. You can play at the highest level and get the highest level degree. So I decided to come here and do this program.
When did you actually get your pilot's license?
So that was November 22nd, 2016, and that's also the last day I've flown.
Really?
Flying is an expensive hobby, so...
Yeah, as I imagine, yeah. So what kind of aircraft have you flown, I guess, when you were not only training, but then when you actually got your license on that one day?
Yeah, so I fly a four-seater Cessna, a Cessna 172. It's a single-engine land aircraft. I have about 75 flight hours. I've flown to South Bend.
Oh, wow.
So my girlfriend went to school at St. Mary's College, which is right across the street from South Bend. So for one of my qualifying cross-country flights, I took a flight to surprise her at Elkhart Airport, which is right outside of South Bend there, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So just on the topic of, aviation, big news this week has been, the sad story really out of Washington State, where the mechanic for Alaska Airlines pretty much stole a plane, and took off and flew it and then ultimately crashed it. To me, it was just unbelievable that, he was able to get the aircraft off the ground, especially it was a passenger plane, like 50-seat or something like that plane. With your experience, like, were you surprised that somebody with no flight experience is able to get a plane off the ground and do some maneuvers in the air, even at all, essentially?
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really tragic event. The mental health issues behind that and just everything that went down, very tragic. But I think there's a lot of layers to that. But for somebody who's not trained on an aircraft, just to get it off the ground is a pretty impressive feat.
Right.
I remember the first time hopping in an airplane, trying to steer it with my feet. I almost put it in the ditch. So, that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, the guy said he's like, oh, I've played video games before on the recording, and it's like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
I've heard interviews of yours where you said you wanted to be, have some involvement in space travel. With your academic background, that makes a lot of sense. I know you said you want to be a pilot, but what are your aspirations as far as maybe leaving this planet as far as leaving this planet goes? Tell me about your astronaut aspirations.
Yeah, for sure. A hero of mine is John Glenn, and he started out in the Army Air Corps and decided to switch over to the Marine Corps because he wanted to fly a certain type of airplane, and so. I'm kind of in that same timeline of my life right now, where I'm thinking about being a pilot in the Marine Corps, but also I'm a dreamer and I'm thinking ahead at stuff like that, and doing this space engineering master's program that I'm in right now. I'm always thinking about what else could I do with this aviation background. What could I be doing in 10 years after I get done flying in the military? And I'd love to leave the planet and see what it's like out there. it's looking right now like with everything that's in the news, with the big Falcon rocket, all the things SpaceX is doing, all the things you see from Blue Origin and NASA and all sorts of different space agencies around the world, ESA, it doesn't look like traveling to another planet is out of the picture within the next 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how close do you think, non-astronauts traveling to space, how far off do you think that is? Because it seems like, all those companies, entrepreneurs you listed, both private companies and NASA and stuff like that, how close do you think that is, and how realistic do you think it is to think, you could be flying commandeering a spaceship and then I could be in there as a passenger?
Yeah, you think about the term astronaut, and it has so much respect that comes with it. We put the best of our civilization in these roles. People like John Glenn, really just amazing people. And then you think about these civilian spaceflight programs that we'll have and that are coming up, where any hundreds of or thousands of people can be up and be technically an astronaut, which is pretty cool. And really, with what you see from SpaceX and Blue Origin, that doesn't look out of the picture.
Yeah, it's really some exciting stuff. I'm a big space nut, space nerd. Clearly, your breadth of knowledge is far deeper than mine, but it's stuff that I like to research in my spare time. So yeah, all these academic opportunities have presented themselves to you. You touched on it, how Michigan was the draw for those reasons. You've also gotten to do some really cool things for the football program here these last couple of off seasons, especially. You went to Rome and Italy last spring, and then went to Paris this year. So I gotta ask, do you have a preference between the two trips? Did one stand out over the other? I know you're a photographer of sorts, so you really got to look closely at both cities. Which place did you prefer?
Photographer might be a loose term for me.
All right.
I tried my best out there. Our team photographer, David Turnley, he's an amazing guy. Has had all these cool experiences, and I had the opportunity to take his class. So,
well, I had Mike McRae in here, this very room last year, and he was telling me about his photographer exploits. He was big into it, so it's interesting. They've set me up with 2 in a row now. Yeah,
it's so fun. Just a fun art form, and really getting to learn with David was really cool. Just all the experiences he has and trying to do stuff like that. But now I think I'm partial to Rome because of just how much I've loved Roman history growing up as a kid. I wanted to be a gladiator and stuff. But that said, I still love France and everything. One of my favorite parts of France was, of course, visiting the beaches of Normandy. It was such a breathtaking experience being out there, being able to see the beach and the water. The day we went out there, it was kind of overcast. There was a fog coming in, kind of water in the air, and you just really felt it. You really felt moved by the experience. Personally, I also got to travel to the south of France and to Toulouse, which is where the Airbus factory is, and that was also a really cool experience visiting that. Yeah,
it all sounds incredible. I was in Rome about a month ago. And to me, we saw the standard sites, but I really like the Coliseum. Just being a sports fan and seeing kind of how it compared to stadiums of this era. And they kind of had it all figured out 2,000 years ago or whatever it was. So
yeah, that was still standing.
Yeah, Rome was amazing, and hopefully get to check France off the list here soon. But basically, did the kind of blueprint you guys did, except for the meeting the Pope. We did not get to do that like you and Coach Harbaugh got to. So with all these experiences you've got to take in, and all of the very serious academic pursuits that you've had, how does this all kind of put football in perspective for you? Because literally you've studied the vastness of space, you've seen the world, you've worked on projects with real impact that have NDAs attached to them. How does that all kind of put football in perspective, and how do you fit football into that life?
Yeah, for sure. One of the best experiences that I've had so far was back in Rome, playing at that Olympic facility, and you're surrounded by all these Roman statues, all these perfect human beings, just surrounding you. You feel like you're, I don't know, kind of in a Roman myth or something, just out there playing football. That was a really cool experience. And that experience kind of put it in perspective to me that, you know, even dating back to those times, you know, it's just such the athleticism and the act of sport that we go through is just such a pure expression of our humanity. It's really like a moving thing that we've always done as a human race and will continue to do.
Yeah, well put. And I'm going to package that into pretty much our wrap-up question for you, Noah, and that's specific to next season under Jim Harbaugh. You know, there's goals that you guys have accomplished so far. You've had some very solid teams, put a ton of guys in the NFL, won some big games, but there's also some goals that have gone unaccomplished. You know, there's Ohio State's out there still yet to be beaten, getting to Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game, getting to the college football playoff. Why do you believe this is a year that you can accomplish those goals and you know, reach kind of the expectation that Michigan fans have?
Yeah, so every year we really have the same goals. You know, we want to do the same things. We want to beat our rivals. We want to win the Big Ten championship. We want to win a national championship. And, you know, we talk about those things a lot and how we're supposed to get to them and achieve them. But I think this year we're really about action. We're not about talking about what we want to do. We're about doing what we want to do. And, you know, we'll let our actions talk for us.
All right, well said. How about for yourself? And you can apply that mantra to this question, but how about, you know, just your personal goals? It's your 5th year here at Michigan. Do you have any sort of personal goals you want to accomplish with it being your final lap around campus here?
Absolutely. I think the thing that I want to see the most is just to make my parents proud, make my family proud. You know, I've been so fortunate that they haven't missed a game in 4 years that I've been here, and I'm sure it'll be 5 years now. And really, just my whole time here has been for them, been for my family. So really looking forward to spending every weekend with them.
All right, Noah, well, you've been very generous with your time. Really enjoyed our discussion. Definitely different, you know, as far as the topics we talked about. And, you know, it's what I like to do, get outside the box and get to know football players off the field. So really appreciate you taking some time today with me.
Thanks so much.
All right, thanks a lot to Noah for joining me. Really fascinating discussion with him. And we'll head on over now to East Lansing, Michigan, about 45 minutes away, where we talked to senior defensive back Khari Willis. Had a really in-depth discussion with him, not only about his really impactful kickoff luncheon speech, but about his background and about Michigan State football. So we'll get to Khari Willis. That interview with Khari starts right now. I'm very pleased to be joined here in East Lansing, Michigan, after Michigan State football practice by a senior Spartan safety. He's also a community leader in his community, and now a renowned speaker as well. It's Khari Willis. Khari, what's up, sir? Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. My privilege.
Absolutely. As I alluded to there in the intro, you can kind of add public speaker now to your list of major achievements alongside your football accolades. A couple weeks ago, delivered an awesome speech at the Big Ten Kickoff Luncheon at Media Days. So first off, I want to congratulate you on a hell of a job on that. Isn't easy to get up in front of a couple thousand people and speak, including all 14 football coaches and players up there. So how'd that go, man, just in the immediate aftermath of that?
Yeah, first, thanks for telling me I did a good job. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It was a great experience, though. I think, you know, with the right preparation and you can never really prepare for being nervous, I guess, or you never really prepare for the amount of people that are being there. But I felt like I had a real message that a lot of student athletes, you know, could, if they aren't doing it already, could possibly learn from. And then some of the things I went through growing up, I knew other players I went through in other schools as well, so I felt that they could relate. So I just wanted to speak on behalf of myself and the rest of the student athletes, and I felt like I did that. For
sure. And Kirk Cousins did it a few years back. He got a lot of positive feedback. What kind of feedback have you gotten? You're on social media for people on campus. I'm sure you got a lot of positive feedback because, like I said, just in that immediate aftermath, we got a ton of feedback at BTN after we shared it on social media. So what kind of feedback did you get?
Yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback. I got a lot of letters and, you know, obviously friends, family, people reaching out from near and far, just, you know, congratulating me and telling me that they're moved I got some feedback from, some old teachers that was teaching in different states now, and, they're saying they're going to use, some of the things that I incorporated for their class and for their young people. So I think it opened up a lot of opportunities for me to do more outreaches and stuff like that, and I'm just looking forward to doing it.
Absolutely, and I mean, people can go and listen to it. It's online and on YouTube and all that, but I really like the message, overall that you delivered. Not only how people need to like kind of broaden their horizons, whether it be race or economic class or background, whatever, but you also challenge your fellow athletes to give back to the community. And for those who haven't heard the speech yet, I guess what inspired you to make that kind of the thrust of your message?
Yeah, well, I knew that, from the community that I grew up in, I didn't have a lot of people coming back, or a lot of people that even made it out in the first place to come back and tell me, the way, or just inspire me to do something better than what I was seeing doing every day. So I felt that if I could incorporate, the story of, the Big Ten dream and how we all dreamed of being at this point, and I can get everybody's mind back to where before we were there, and then show them the impact that we can have now on people that are in previous positions that we were in. So I just felt like I thought of our platform as an opportunity for us to be a light to those people that are like us, and then even learn about people that are not like us, and then infinitely we can all come together and be better.
Yeah, can you get into that background? You touched on a little bit in the speech. You said you grew up as one of 10 brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
Just how did that shape you into the person you are today?
It definitely made me. I mean, I was always, younger, so I was always kind of not a weak link, but I had a lot of older brothers and stuff like that. So it made me tough. It made me have to fight and grind for everything, and I kind of adapted it here. It's just a Spartan way. It's just who I am as a person. So it fit well with me. And then, growing up in the inner city, facing, a lot of the challenges that a lot of kids face today. Not all of them, obviously, but a good amount of them, and being able to relate and understand them. And I think that with a big family like that, when you're financially challenged, you're gonna learn from that.
And you're from the state of Michigan, correct?
Yep, Jackson, Michigan, about 35 minutes from here.
Yeah, tell me about that hometown of yours.
Yeah, it's real small, couple different sides to it. The south side is more the inner city rough side. If you go out west or out east, you'll find, a little bit better neighborhoods, but it's not that many people. It's like 35, maybe 40,000 people at most, and it's little small communities.
So you mentioned some examples of how before you didn't see that much positive impact coming back into your community as far as people that had made it out. What have you done to go back and kind of show, be that guiding light, like you said, to those people who are from your hometown?
Yeah, for one, I obviously go back to the schools that I went to, and also schools that I played against or whatever, competed against, and try to just inspire the kids. If a kid reach out to me, I try to build a mentor relationship to them. I give them my phone number, let them know that they can reach out to me anytime that they would like to. And also, a lot of my friends from the area I grew up in, they're in prison and jail. So I also go back and just talk to them and, try to look out for them, give them something that they need, give them a little bit of encouragement, maybe if they need something on their books here and there. So I just try to go back to those that really, really need help. I feel that as people in some circumstances maybe they can't control, and if I could just use my platform to help them and just inspire them, I feel like I've done my part.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for, people in that position to see someone like you who's been so successful. And I think on the flip side, it helps a lot if people without that perspective can go and kind of, on both sides of, politics or whatever, and see how people are living. I feel like it could help, heal a lot of kind of the division that's going on right now.
Yeah, definitely. Whenever you can get a different point of view, and that's why I lived in a certain neighborhood. My father sent us, he sacrificed and sent us to private schools. So I was able to kind of learn about both. And then I was looking at the gap, and I feel like I just kind of want to bridge the gap. You know what I mean? So yeah. I feel like that's what I've been trying to do.
Yeah, no doubt. So that's all great stuff, Khari. And then we'll get into football a little bit now and your path here to Michigan State. You've seen some, incredible highs and some significant lows with this program, throughout your 4 years here in East Lansing. So how did you personally deal with, the difficulties of going from a Big Ten championship caliber program to 3-9 your sophomore year?
Yeah, that was tough for me, being on a losing team, having a losing season, and then we also took a lot of blows in the off season. So like I said in the speech, our head strength and conditioning coach as well as Coach D, our position coaches, we all pretty much just had to go back and dig up and redefine what our values were for our team, simply because we were just so young, so inexperienced. And I think that once we did that, we kind of was able to pull it together a little bit. But it was definitely a life learning, opportunity for me. Not playing as well my sophomore year and basically getting benched, and I feel like that humbled me and just let me know, you have to do what you did to get here, and you have to continue that and be better at that every single day. And I feel like that helped me.
Yeah, one word that you used heavily in that speech was reaffirmation.
Yeah.
So how did you I guess, specifically put that into action, whether it was, more reps, more time working out on your own? How did you put that into action and turn it into, the success story that we've seen you going into your senior year?
Yeah, but what I did is I had to just go back to my moral values. So I had to, go back to, church, go back to the areas that made up my character. I had to redefine my character, and then I had to redefine, my work ethic. I had to say what I did last year was not enough. I had to look at who I was on film and tell myself that is really me, because sometimes you see yourself on film, you're like, man, I can't believe I did that, did this. Then I had to watch some other players, players that came before me, watch what they did, kind of adapt what they did, reach out to them. Darquez Denard helped me out a tremendous amount. R.J. Williamson, players that came here before me. So I had to reach out to players and learn, and then be able to grow for myself.
Were you surprised, just being honest, how quickly you guys became a top 15 caliber program, just 1 year removed from pretty much a disaster season?
I wasn't really surprised, simply because I knew what we had. And like you said, you had seen the highs and you had seen the lows. You kind of see, what you have when you're going through the process. Mm-hmm. And I knew that we had, something good. I didn't know how good, but I knew we were going to be a lot better than we were the year before. And now I feel like we have something just absolutely special, returning, a lot of guys back, a lot of chemistry and things of that nature. So I feel that I was not surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if we were even better this year.
Right. I was going to ask my next question, how do you translate that into this year? Make sure not only do you not have a drop-off, but that you're able to compete in such a tough division with the likes of Ohio State, Penn State, and, of course, the school up the road, Michigan. How do you translate that into this year?
Yeah, it all started in the offseason. I feel that the work we put together in the offseason, it pays off. It goes a long way. Our coaches have tweaked some of our, off-season, systems or off-season processes for us to be able to get better at a faster rate. And I feel that we've done that last year. We've continued it this year. So I'm excited about the direction we're going. Obviously, we want to move through camp as best we can, keeping everybody healthy. But we've been getting after it. And I think that that's what makes, Spartan football, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
For sure. And, Khari, before we wrap up, talked a lot about your speech, a lot about Spartan football. But I want to get into your personal hobbies a little bit away from the community and the football field. So what are some hobbies or some things you enjoy off the field when you're not putting in community work and when you're not out here in the practice field? Yeah,
well, I've always been a basketball player, so I enjoy just shooting around, put my headphones on, just go out and get some shots up. It's real peaceful for me. I also play Madden, hang out with my teammates. Music is big in my family, so every now and then I hop on the piano, maybe sing a little bit. And then and I like to write poetry, so those are the things I like to do.
All right, I'm gonna follow up a couple of those there. Basketball, who's your favorite basketball team and favorite athlete?
Favorite basketball team is wherever LeBron James goes.
Okay, so you're a LeBron fan.
I'm a LeBron fan. That's my favorite athlete, and then my other favorite athlete, he's retired, but I would say Floyd Mayweather. I love boxing.
All right, tell me how you got into poetry. That's interesting.
Yeah, poetry. So my dad always encouraged me, because I used to be a kid that had to express itself, and sometimes I do that in the wrong way. And he always told me, just write it down. Write it down. Right. He encouraged me to write, and then I knew I didn't want to rap or come up with a mixtape, but I knew I wanted to rhyme. So I just kind of put what I was feeling in a poetic way, and I feel like I had pretty good poems.
Do you share it anywhere? Is it published anywhere? Where can we find this?
No, not yet. But I mean, if y'all want some, I'll give you some.
All right, I'm gonna have to follow through on that.
Gotcha.
All right, Khari. Thanks a lot for your time, man. Really appreciate it. Thanks for putting your heart out there, especially on that Big Ten Kickoff Luncheon stage, and then on this podcast as well. So appreciate you being with me.
Absolutely. Thanks for for all the support and everything, and we're ready to go this season. Go green.
For sure.
Thanks once again to Khari for joining me. Really an impactful discussion with him. Really enjoyed meeting and talking with him. And we'll move on now to our western leg of the Take 10 podcast, where we started in Madison, Wisconsin with Badger defensive lineman Levi Sagapolu. Got into his background, his hidden talents, and a lot more. So without further ado, we'll kick it over to Camp Randall Stadium and Levi Sagapolu.
Very pleased to be joined here at Camp Randall Stadium, Madison, Wisconsin, by Badger defensive tackle Levi Sagapolu. Levi, my man, thanks for joining me, and thanks for doing it through the pain. You're just cramping up a little bit here.
Yeah, it was a hard practice. Feel pretty dehydrated, but hey, gotta love fall camp. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. Especially glad you're here because this is stop number 8 on our tour, and this is the first time I've got a lineman, so I don't know what's up with that.
Oh, really?
But I feel like you guys are a unique breed, man. What is it about you linemen that makes you so different?
I guess we're kind of the guys that you don't really see. I mean, most of the people you see are linebackers, skilled players, mids, kind of running around, and most of them kind of get the glory. So I mean, it's kind of good to see that I can represent for the big men up front. But,
yeah, for sure. Within that unique subculture with like linemen, you're kind of unique yourself. You got a unique background for many reasons, and we'll start with your path here. To Madison, you're not from this part of the country, so take me through. First where you're born and where you grew up, and what led you to Madison, Wisconsin.
So I was born in Hawaii. And then let's think about it. A year later, I moved to American Samoa, which is a small U.S. territory down in the South Pacific. It's about 2,000 miles from the coast of California, we're just pretty much dead center in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. But from then on, I was about 10. Then I moved to California. Kind of, for me, it was an opportunity to kind of leave American Samoa and kind of go to someplace where I can get an early jump on football and sports and school. And eventually found myself there. And then I ended up going to high school at Mater Dei High School. And then from there, I'm kind of happy that Wisconsin gave me an opportunity to kind of play for them. And so here I am now.
Yeah, and football runs in your family, right? You got a couple of, is it uncles that have played in the Big Ten?
Yep. I had my uncle who plays now for Denver. He used to play at Michigan State. Then I also have another cousin who plays also for Denver. But he went to Oregon State. But yeah, I have 2 relatives that play right now. Probably have a handful more that I don't know of, just because, as most people know, the Polynesian culture, and there's a lot of us, and somehow, some way, we're always related somehow. But yeah.
Right. And now you're a big football guy at a big football school here in Wisconsin, but in high school you mentioned at Mater Dei. That's far from your only activity. You were on the cheer squad, correct, out there?
Yeah, I was. I did it just for my senior year, just to kind of do something fun and out of the box, I guess, a little bit. But from then on, just did a little bit of cheerleading just to kind of experience what it's like to be a cheerleader. So what first kind of got me interested was learning how to do a backflip, and then from then on, just hanging out with the team and throwing some of the girls up. I mean, just hanging out with the people and just kind of meeting new people is probably the biggest thing for me.
Right. You just judged a backflip competition for social media here. You've gone viral with your backflips before, doing them on the beach. When's your first backflip? When did you first pull off a backflip?
I pulled it off my senior year of high school. I think I still got it on my Instagram. It took me a little bit. I mean, I did a couple on the trampoline just to kind of make sure I got a feel for it. Then I just kind of threw it on the ground, and then I did it. But that was my senior year of high school, and then now I wanted to see if I can do it again. That's the one that went viral, I guess.
Yeah, the one that went viral. You said what'd your coaches say to you after they saw it?
They just said, wow, that looks really impressive. Don't do it again. So they kind of tells you. But, I mean, for me, it was just I was bored at home and wanted to see if I can do one.
Right. And,
took me a while.
People can't see the podcast, but, you're a big defensive lineman, 300 pounds plus, so that's no small feat. You're able to do that.
Yeah.
There's also been images out there, I think at a Wisconsin basketball game, you did the toe touch. Which comes easier, I guess, the toe touch or the backflip?
I'd say the toe touch, probably. I mean, I think it's more just, I think of it as just throwing my legs up. I don't know how it, I guess they just caught it at the right moment, but it's not just me who can do it. I mean, I know there are a couple linemen out there who would be able to just do an easy toe touch, but they just caught me at the right time, I guess.
In all seriousness, though, that flexibility and that agility, I'm sure serves you really well out in the field at your position.
I think so, but I mean, it kind of just shows versatility as in person. I mean, you're not really just a big guy. I mean, try to be one of those big guys who'd be able to move in space and kind of just quick off the feet, which is kind of for any offensive, defensive lineman. But yeah, I think I'd say it helps. Yeah.
So, you get to Wisconsin, you bring this graceful athleticism with you for a guy your size, but, you also bring a big personality to Wisconsin. In an article about you, your mom said that you bring aloha to a place where there is no aloha. So, not saying there's no aloha here, but tell a mainlander what that phrase means and what your mom meant by that.
I think when people say that he kind of brings out aloha, it's kind of that family vibe that kind of, a lot of people see me, and I mean, I know this is a podcast, but most people see me as like a very big, some think I'm scary, but the people who really, really know me think of me as like the weirdest, funniest person. I guess that's what I've just heard, but not to toot my own horn here, which I really don't like to do, but that's just some of the things that people say. It's kind of just that whole family vibe, and it's more of like a cool, relaxed kind of a thing, I think.
Sure. And I've heard that Levi knows everybody. So you just walk down the streets here in Madison, and people kind of flock to you. Is that accurate?
Yeah, sometimes. But
toot your own horn, man. It's cool.
I can, man. I'm not a big person on tooting my own horn, but
look at it this way. This means you get along well with everybody. So
yeah.
What's an example maybe of you going outside, the football team or the football culture to get to know people?
I think for me, it's just kind of just meeting. For me, I think one thing that I wanted to start was trying to meet people in other sports. I mean, I think since my sophomore, junior year, I tried to go out and meet new different people, kind of not necessarily introduce myself, but for me, I'm more of an introvert. Mm-hmm. So I mean, unless I start getting comfortable, then that's when I start coming out. But it's more just meeting people and then trying to make friends outside of my own sport. I mean, most every guy on the team I pretty much know, but then it's kind of for me, I like to have a big variety of different friends and different sports and different kinds of people, just to kind of see what it's like. And I mean, I guess I think that kind of correlates with the whole Aloha thing.
Yeah, and you kind of did the opposite of what your average Midwestern college-age kid does or tries to do. That usually the Midwestern kids try and find the beach. You went from the beach to the Midwest, so how have you adjusted to this town, this part of the country, and especially the winters, which you probably didn't get out in Cali?
Yeah, I mean, when I first came out here, it was probably the second or third time I've ever seen snow and kind of felt it. But living in it, to be honest, not a big fan. But I mean, I'll do what I can. But I mean, I kind of enjoy it. But I think for me, I don't really look more of the Midwest as like that's a place that's not as good for weather. I think it was more the relationships that I've made. I mean, through the coaching staff, through the people that I meet every day. It's probably the biggest takeaway I have from Wisconsin is just kind of meeting nice people and kind of getting to know them.
Yeah, Madison's worth it, man. Like, this town is, I always tell people it's my favorite Big Ten town. I love it. It's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just wrap up here, Olive, with some Badger football talk. Can't leave it out because you guys have built this thing into a monster here, especially these last couple of years. Sky high expectations coming into the 2018 season. You're part of a returning defense that was number 2 in total defense nationally. You're the anchor of that excellent, run stuffing group. So, what's your hunger level like, after coming up short of the college football playoff last year, but still having an incredible season?
I think for me personally, it's just more of I think it is a great opportunity to kind of showcase what we're about. I mean, as you probably know, that most people don't really necessarily count us towards a certain kind of team where we're kind of high up there. I mean, we're more of like the people that they kind of just don't look towards to as kind of gaining much ground from that. But I think it's kind of just the whole mentality that we have every day. Our coaches really preach coming in every day and working, trying to compete. I think last week I had a time to kind of give a quote. It's kind of everything that we do. Just we give a quote of the day. I think for me the biggest thing I just said compete. It was more of a funny kind of a thing because I dressed up and kind of did my whole thing. But I think that's one thing that we bring in every day is just the mind and willingness to compete and kind of get each other better, so that just as long as everybody's doing their 111, I mean, there's a lot of things that can come out of that.
What's the best feeling on a football field? Like, is it a sack or a tackle for loss? What's the best feeling for you out on the field?
I guess there's a number of different things that I kind of enjoy seeing. I love seeing the linebackers come fly through the line. As I know, as like for me, whenever I do my job correctly, if I'm eating 2 and I see them fly through, make a TFL, that's one thing that definitely excites me. But I mean, like every other person, I mean, if you get a sack here or there, you get a big tackle, TFL, those are definitely game-changing moments, and that's kind of one of the things that it's very happy with. I think for me, it's more just watching our linebackers go out, make plays, and have fun.
Do you have a go-to sack dance?
I think every time I've done it, I think I've just been like doing the little train thing. I think I saw my cousin do it a couple times, and I thought that was pretty dope. But I don't know. We'll see what this year holds. I mean, I might do something.
I'm sure you got a few in the holster coming up this season. But Olive, you've been really generous with your time, not only as a backflip judge, but as a podcast guest. So appreciate it. Best of luck this season, and thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks one more time to Olive for joining me. He was a lot of fun to meet and talk to. Appreciate him having fun with it and hosting a backflip competition for us right before that interview, and really being a easy guy to deal with, so appreciate that. For our final discussion of this episode, we will kick it over to Minneapolis, Minnesota, where we talk with Minnesota linebacker Bailey Schoenfelder, who is recently on scholarship. Had a really cool story to tell about how he received that scholarship and has a very cool background as well, coming from small town South Dakota, and hoping one day to join the military, become a Navy SEAL, and his scholarship situation is tied in with that by PJ Fleck. So we'll get into that discussion right now as we head to Twin Cities and an interview with Bailey Schoenfelder. All right, I'm very pleased to be joined here in Minneapolis on the BTN Bus Tour following Gopher football practice by Minnesota linebacker Bailey Schoenfelder. Bailey, thanks for joining me today, man.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, glad you're here in this brand new sparkling facility. It's an amazing facility, and I didn't plan to start out with this, but I can't, honestly proceed without admiring this and getting your thoughts on just the crazy new facility you guys have got set up here at the football complex.
Yeah, it's really insane. It has anything you could ever ask for, and everything's brand new. I mean, we had no idea. It was when I committed here, I had no clue that this was going to happen, and it was pretty much just luck of the draw, and it's beyond anything I've ever seen before. I mean, I've heard of places that are better, but I've never seen one, and it's not even just like a football facility. Like, it's a living facility. Like, we got a lounge with food, we got couches and gaming systems, and you can do pretty much anything you need to do here. Like, we even sleep here during camp. So
yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah, I was gonna say, from like the putting green to the pool tables to all that. Like, do you have a favorite cool amenity that you got in this complex?
Oh yeah, definitely my favorite is pool table. That's one of a kind pool table. We had it custom made, I think. Yeah, it's awesome.
That lounge is sick. Just walking through there is amazing.
Incredible. Huh?
All right, so moving on. Bailey, it's cool because you've become kind of a social media star in the last couple of weeks here. Your name's been in the news a lot this past week because you probably had one of the coolest scholarship reveal experiences of all time. So, in case anyone out there didn't see it, can you kind of tell the people listening what happened and how you received notice that you were no longer a walk-on, you were on scholarship here in Minnesota?
Right. So we had a normal practice. We're going to TCF because coach likes to get us to the stadium and get a feel for it. And we were just finishing up all our pre-practice stuff. We're doing a tough yard drill, like a find out drill on the goal line. And we were just finished that up, and somebody said something or noticed something, and up in the air there's two guys that had red smoke, like a red smoke trail, and American flag parachutes kind of spiraling down into the stadium. And everybody was, at that point, it was a bustle, and we started wondering what was going on. I was confused, and one of them landed on one side and one of them landed on the other, and I was like, once the one guy landed, I was going over to him, and then the opposite guy, Coach Fleck started talking to him, and we all got on the goal line, and we were all seeing what was going on, and he said he had something for Coach Fleck. He had to Coach Fleck an envelope, said it was from Washington, and then Coach Fleck calls up my best buddy and one of my roommates, Keeft, to open the envelope, and he opened it up, and there's a paper in there that said, congrats, Bailey, you're on a scholarship or something like that. And at that point, everybody freaked out, and we all kind of mobbed around and kind of came to the realization.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I encourage anyone out there who hasn't seen the footage, just search on social media the Minnesota Scholarship Reveal, because it was crazy. Like you said, they literally parachuted into TCF Bank Stadium, handed your buddy the scholarship notice, and then you found out. So just, what was your immediate reaction besides all the overwhelming, theatrics of it all? Just what did that mean to you to be put on scholarship here?
Well, I didn't really know what to do with myself at that point. I was so overwhelmed, I probably didn't look like I had any emotions going on. But inside, I would definitely say immediately I felt relief, because I've been working a long time for that, and my parents have been helping me out a lot with the financial stuff, and I was relieved to be able to take that off their shoulders with the hard work and everything. And then after that, I was obviously pretty joyful to be sharing that moment with all my teammates, and then after that I moved on to what's my next thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a cool thing they kind of tailored for you personally, because the Navy SEALs parachuting out, that'd be cool for anybody, but especially for you, just because of your background and the passion you kind of developed growing up in South Dakota. So tell me about growing up in your hometown and of Huron, and how did your desire to and your passion for the military and desire to join the military come about?
Right. So I grew up about 10 miles south of my hometown on a ranch. My family raises and sells quarter horses. And I did all the sports and stuff in high school and all that, and there wasn't a whole lot to do in my hometown besides sports. And one of my best friends from high school, he was a year older than me, we got this idea in our heads. I was a sophomore, he's a junior in high school. They're like, hey, we're going to join the Marines. And we were already like workout fanatics, like we do it all the time with each other, like after practice and stuff like that, and we loved it, and we started like training for the military. And at that point, it was just kind of like I was just like a kid, and I was like, hey, yeah, the military, that sounds real cool. And after a while, I started looking into it. I started like reading books. I started really like thinking about like sort of the deeper like impact of actually joining the military, and it started really meaning something to me. And then at that point, I was pretty committed to it by like the end of my junior year and then into my senior year. And so toward the end of my school year, I had been working with like the Marines in like pulley events, which is like they have like little trainee things to send guys to boot camp. And I'd been doing that as like a guest because I hadn't been enlisted yet. And about in the winter of my senior year, I was getting actually enlisted. I was going through processing to get enlisted and join the delayed entry program. And we were doing all the medical stuff. It's this big long process, like an all-day thing. You wake up at 4:30 and go all day to get processed. And we're doing my medical stuff about halfway through the day, and I took my hearing test. I left to go do something else, and they came and got me. Took me to the doctor to check my ears, see if my ears were plugged up or anything like that. They were fine. I went back, took my hearing test again, and at that point they just like sent me home. They just put me on a bus and sent me home from Sioux Falls. And I didn't know what to do with myself at that point because like that was all I was going to do. I didn't have another plan. I didn't want to do anything else. So that was kind of pulled out from underneath me, and I was kind of stunned for a while. And then obviously like I was talking to my parents and stuff, and like I had to do something. Like I wasn't going to not go to college. So I had applied here, and I'd been accepted a long time ago. Like it was like on a suggestion from one of my like wrestling coaches, like you better at least have like some sort of backup, some plan. So I had applied here, and I still could have applied to some other schools, but I had applied here. I liked the sound of this school, and I had talked to my brother Kurt, my oldest brother, who did track and field here, and he said, yeah, it was a great school. Like he wouldn't have asked for anything different. He met his wife here. He had a great education, got a great job, all that stuff. I have family close here, and I was like, yeah, Minnesota sounds good. And I didn't just want to go to school either, because that's not really my style. Like I got to have something like sports or something like the military to do with myself, you know, be part of something. And so literally what I did is Coach Clays was like the interim head coach here at the time, and I literally called him on a cell phone and had a conversation with him. And at the end of the conversation, he was like, yeah, we'll offer you a preferred walk-on spot. And then at that point, I trained all summer. I couldn't afford to come here for summer like training like most freshmen do. And then I showed up for camp in 2016 in August and been here ever since.
So just backpedaling a little bit, so what exactly was the hearing problem that the military wouldn't allow you to proceed with that?
Right, so I had no idea. Like I can't even really tell.
Yeah.
Like, I can hear anything that you would expect to hear. What it is I have a high frequency hearing deficit is what they called it. And like if you look at the audiogram, it's all straight across perfect hearing, and then there's a dip at like 4,000 and like 5,000 hertz, which is a pretty high frequency. It's like the frequency of like most like guns and like a jackhammer, I believe. And it was like mild to severe hearing loss, which is just under the cut. And it was I didn't notice, but it was enough for them to kick me out. And what it was is what I was told, because I've been to several doctors and had it looked at pretty extensively. Is because I grew up on a ranch. You know, we have a lot of old machinery. We had to make hay for the horses, and I'd always run the tractors, and they didn't have cabs. They were loud, old machines. Shot a lot of guns without hearing protection. All sorts of different stuff like that, and it just kind of put a little dent in my hearing that really ended up getting me in the end.
Right, and that's unfortunate, but you mentioned another door open with Coach Clays, and once Coach Clays left, Coach Fleck arrived, and obviously you guys have built a special bond that comes through like clearly in that video when he gave you the scholarship, embraced you and all that. So how did that bond with a guy who didn't recruit you, who didn't bring you in? How did that develop with a guy like Coach Fleck?
Well, I feel like as men and as people, we're pretty similar. I feel like we clicked right away, like me with him personally and with his culture that he brings with him. Because that's really my style. He talks about the how and like the unconquerable will and all that stuff, and that's always been kind of what I've put all my chips on and what I've really made myself with. And from that point on, like I knew, like anybody else, I wasn't sure. Like when he first showed up, it was completely different than anything I'd ever experienced. But like sooner than most people, I imagine, I was committed in my mind and ready to do whatever I needed to for Coach Fleck, and I feel like he saw that, and then we just became pretty close over time because we've spent a lot of time together so far.
Yeah, definitely. And you see Coach Fleck do this for not just you, but some other walk-ons in special ways. There was one on the Jumbotron at the spring football game. He had a young patient at the Children's Hospital give it to one of his football player buddies. Was another example. So he really seems to enjoy making this experience special, and that kind of ties into like a big selling point that your recruiters have talked to us about, recruiting coaches have talked to us about, like the experience that the coaching staff tries to create for you guys outside of football. Like you guys went to a Beyonce and Jay-Z concert a couple weeks ago. How was that? Just being able to do that with your teammates.
That was pretty crazy. Like this camp, last camp they caught us off guard with all this stuff, and this camp we kind of like had some idea that we're probably going to do some team bonding stuff. And we were talking about it earlier that day, and somebody was like, "Oh yeah, there's a Jay-Z Beyonce concert in town." And we're like, "Oh yeah, right, yeah, we'll do that." And it turns out we did, and they revealed it, and everybody was really excited about it. And it's not even like I don't even listen to that kind of music, but I was still excited about it because they're like really, it's almost like the Beatles were. Like even if you didn't listen to the Beatles, like they were still the Beatles. Like Jay-Z and Beyonce are big time. And to go there with all those people and see something like that, like how well orchestrated it was and how like perfectly they performed it, and it was like 3 hours long. It was really something. It was really impressive. It was a once in a lifetime thing for sure.
Absolutely. So before I let you go, Bailey, I just want to ask one more football related question here. You obviously still have quite a bit of football career ahead of you here in Minnesota. Minnesota moves into year 2 under Coach Fleck. What signs have you seen just around the program, aside from this insane facility we're sitting in right now, to show you, that the way this thing is being built, the process, how it's proceeding, what have you seen to indicate to you that everything's moving forward, in the right direction, correctly, and at a good pace?
Well, the biggest thing, and we've talked about it since day one, Coach Fleck talks about it all the time, is definitely like the camaraderie and like the connection between all of my teammates. Like I'm like closer and more connected with so many people on this football team than I would have ever imagined, because I'm not a really outgoing guy. I don't make a lot of friends. I make a few friends, and I make good friends. And like I'm really good friends with a lot of people on this football team, more than I'd ever imagined myself being. And that's one of the major keys, if not the key, to becoming a championship football team. Coach Fleck talks about it all the time, is being truly connected and being a family instead of just a group of guys.
Awesome.
That's the biggest thing I've noticed.
All right, Bailey. Well, you've been really generous with your time. And your 15, minutes of social media fame is still alive and well right now. So I appreciate you sitting down with me, sharing your story, and best of luck going forward, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks one more time to Noah, Khari, Bailey, and Olive for joining me. A lot of fun talking to those guys and meeting them. I got much more to come here on the Take 10 podcast, BTN Bus Tour Edition 2018. Got 2 episodes down, 8 interviews down. I think we'll try and knock out the last 5 on an episode to come, most likely next week. The tour is about to wrap up, and 14 schools will have been visited by our BTN crew, and I believe we'll have 13 players that we'll have talked to. So lots to get to, lots to cover, and we've done 8 of the 13 so far. So go back and check out episode number 1 if you haven't already. Definitely check out episode number 3 to come, and I hope you enjoyed episode 2. So until next time, we'll talk to you again on the Take 10 podcast.